The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar for the call for proposals for the upcoming annual conference and exposition in Toronto. We are very excited that you're able to join us today. Just want to let you know that we will have time for questions at the end, so feel free to share with us what questions you may have. In addition, you are all on listen-only mode, so you can't talk to us, but you'll have the opportunity to raise your hand and type in messages on the right-hand box of the webinar module, I guess. My name is Christine Winget, and I am the Associate Director of Housing for Learning and Development at the University of Florida. And for this role, I actually serve as the Annual Conference and Exposition Program Chair for this upcoming year. And I have a colleague with me.
Yes, thanks, Christine. Hi, my name is Lori Sabata. I will be presenting with Christine, alongside Christine today. I am with the central office staff, and I have been serving as the liaison for the program committee for, I think this is coming up on my 10th year here. So we're really excited to do this again for another year, and we're really looking forward to Toronto next year.
So again, welcome. We wanted to share, just so that you kind of know what the conference is going to look like this upcoming year. We'll have 10 education sessions, along with, and those sessions are each 50 minutes long. We have one quick take session. In addition, there will be 18 program rooms throughout each session. 2 of those will be roundtable rooms. So we'll have 2 roundtables going on at each time period, as well as 1 senior leadership track. For those of you who may have attended the conference in the past, this is pretty new. We've done it for the last 2 years, and we'll be continuing it this next year. There will be approximately 147 programs that will get accepted for this year's conference. And we're anticipating quite a few being submitted. So we're excited that you're here with us today to learn a little bit more about what you can do to make your proposal one of those that gets chosen as those 147. Big important date is that on Tuesday, December 4th, is when those program proposals are due. My advice to you is don't wait until December 4th to complete it, but instead to do it previous to that date. And so that you know, we really encourage as many people to submit their program proposals, because what we know is that the larger number of submissions improves the overall quality of our program. And we continue to get very positive feedback from entry level to senior level housing officers to let us know that they're really impressed with the quality, and we only want that to continue. So just kind of wanted to put that out there. We have, so the other thing that you would also be able to submit are pre-conferences. Pre-conferences take place on Saturday before the conference begins. And there's 3 areas that we're actually looking for program proposals in this year. One is resiliency, another is emotional intelligence, and the third is civility. And what we'd like to see in these is really quality presentations. These are 3 hours long, so obviously something that's well developed, and something that maybe would include, well, hopefully would include some activity-based things, maybe a train the trainer type program or something like that. It can help to have more than one presenter, especially in these, just so that you have somebody to bounce those ideas off of throughout the presentation. So that's kind of what the ed sessions look like and pre-conferences. We're going to talk a little bit about the delegate profile, just so that you kind of have an idea of what it looked like at this past year's conference. So this past year we were in Denver, and you can see here what the breakdown of the demographics of those who attended the conference. So it is fairly similar to our membership, not a lot different than what our membership is that attends the conference. So that's pretty neat. One thing that will be really interesting this year is the location question. Obviously, with us being in Toronto, I would expect that non-US number to go up a little bit because of Canada, of it being in Canada, and likely we will attract quite a few of our members from Canada to attend. But as you can see, these demographics are kind of all over the board. One of the reasons why we like to share this during this webinar is so that you have an idea of who the attendees are, to be able to really connect with them throughout your presentation. And we do keep this in mind as we are reviewing programs as well. One thing that's kind of interesting is that the education piece, so about 70% of our members who are attending have a master's degree. The other is the age. It's kind of all over the board. And then you can see kind of where the others are as well. Next, this slide kind of shows where the functional areas, the first column at least, is the functional areas of where the folks who are attending the conference is. I don't know if this is surprising to folks or not. About 59% of the folks who attend the conference come from the residence life side of things. About 11% are from business operations and 6% are from facilities. And then a large 24% is actually from more than one area. So they may have some residence life responsibilities as well as business operations. They may have some facilities as well as business operations or something like that. So as you're kind of looking at proposals, something to keep in mind. The other thing is the position level in the organization. So you can see our paraprofessionals. It's a pretty small group at this point. Know that that includes our STAR students. It also includes any graduate students that may be attending. And then you can see kind of the numbers from there. The senior housing officer, the 26%, that is actually why we started that senior leadership track, is because that's a fairly large percentage. It's actually the largest represented at our conference, and so we wanted to make sure that they had sessions that were designed for them. Also realize, however, that all of us call these roles something different at our institutions. So while a director might be something at your institution, it may look very different at someone else's. But hopefully, again, this is something to kind of guide you as you are kind of coming up with your proposal. So at the conference, as you may remember, if you were there this year, we give out an evaluation at the end of each session. And those evaluations we do on paper, and we do it on paper because we know that we get better results that way. We get a lot more turned in than if we did it online. We actually have tried that, and this seems to work better. But we thought that this might be helpful to share with you all. So this is what program participants felt like during the presentation. And as you can see, overall, really good. Effective multimedia use was the lowest, and so something to keep in mind if you are planning on using a PowerPoint or you are planning on using something else, to make sure that you're truly effectively using that, and also consider whether or not that's the best way to do things. But as you can see, our attendees were overall really satisfied with what they were attending, because obviously this is all on the toward excellence side, so we're excited about that. From the individual ed sessions, just so that you kind of know, as we were going through, kind of they would identify what level they were. You can see here where that is. And our mid-level, thank you so much, mid-level leaders, about 32% of the evaluations came from them, which is awesome. As you may know, not everyone fills out a session evaluation. Whether whether or not they do is kind of up to them. We really encourage it, and it really is because we want to be able to share the feedback that folks get from this presentation to be able to continue their professional development. It's just as much professional development to sit in the room as a participant as it is for them to be presenting. And so this is a great way to be able to share this feedback with them. And as a presenter, so if you present a program, you will get the feedback. You'll get some of it immediately, so that's part of why we do some on paper, so you'll get that immediately. But in addition, you'll get some after the conference as well. Okay, so one of the biggest things is trying to figure out what in the world you want to present on and what that looks like. So I just kind of wanted to go through a couple things, some kind of large scale things that might be helpful. The ACUHO established a body of knowledge and core competencies in 2012. I can't believe that's been 6 years ago already. But in that, there were 12 different areas of expertise unique to housing and residence life. These areas are called core content areas. And that is kind of where we took to get the different areas of presentations that you can submit. This is kind of all our core curriculum. It basically is, these are what are necessary to be able to be successful in our jobs in housing and residence life. So at first, this may seem a little overwhelming. This is all of the areas that you can submit a program proposal in. And they are specific for a reason, and that is so that people really know what they're attending. What we do know is that your program may fall into more than one of these. What we ask is that you choose the primary one. So looking at, if you're submitting something that is, it's about RAs, but it's really crisis management, probably put it under crisis management. If it's something that is, more kind of about the true RA training of crisis management, then maybe that goes under RA training and selection. But figuring out what each of those goes to is important. And that is really, really, really what can make a huge difference in your proposal. So if you put that you are interested in, or that you are submitting a program in conference services, and the conference services review team doesn't feel like that really fits into conference services, that could actually mean that your program gets declined, and we really don't want that. So as much as possible, really spend time thinking truly about where your presentation fits into these. And like I said, I know there are a lot. Just so that you know, on the program proposal form, it includes all of these things. So even the things that are in black, which are the subdomains, those are also included on there, just so that you kind of have an idea. The next part that is probably most important in the evaluation piece, and you may have seen that on those evaluations, is the target audience. One of the things is that we really want to meet our individuals where they are, and we really talk about different career trajectories in ACUHO. So this is kind of what you can see. You can see that we start with paraprofessionals. Those are, again, our graduate students and our undergraduate students, moving into new professionals, which is 0 to 3 years, advancing professionals, which is 3 to 7 years, mid-level professionals, which is 8+ years, and then our shows and our aspiring senior housing officers. So you can kind of see what that looks like. When you are putting together your proposal, it is really, really helpful to think about who is the primary audience for this. Is it those shows, or is it new professionals? And as you are doing that, and as you are putting together your proposal, this is something that you should continually come back to ensure that you are really, really hitting that target audience. Again, like with the core content areas, you're picking one target audience, but realize that it's your primary target audience. So some folks look through the entire program guide on the app and choose sessions that are only in their target audience. Others don't even look at that and may instead look at the title. So it's important that you kind of keep this in mind as you are putting together your presentation, because some folks really will only go to a presentation that intended audience that they are. And so kind of keep that in mind. And this really, really, really helps our members to know what to expect when they walk into the room.
All right. So, Christine, thank you for that overview. I think we're going to go ahead and switch over now, if that's all right, and talk a little bit more about, so Christine kind of went over a sort of a higher level overview, and I'm going to talk a little bit more of the nitty-gritty details and the nuts and bolts and operational types of things, like what makes a good program, what's a sample or an example of a good program, and then, importantly, how do I submit a program? So we will cover that, and I think Christine may mention this, but I want to mention also, I know that we're kind of going through some of these slides really quickly. Some of my slides are going to have a lot of text on them that I'll go through quickly. I'm not going to read it verbatim off the screen because that would be really boring, but we are going to be we are recording this webinar, so we'll be distributing a recording of this webinar as well as the slides, so you'll have a chance to go back and maybe reread some of the items on the screen that you may have missed before. And then also, if you have some colleagues too who you think you would want to share the recording with, we'll have a link available for that as well. So I just want to kind of walk through the basic components of a program and just point out some items, what makes a good program. Obviously, you want to start with a good title. There are some character limits on the different fields. So the title field is limited to 70 characters. And I did say here that clever is a plus. So any kind of, you really think about our reviewers are reviewing hundreds of proposals sometimes in some cases, and a good, clever, eye-catching title is a plus. Description should be engaging but not too long, and also be careful of typos. And hopefully no one will point out any typos in this presentation to me, and that would be ironic. But no, it really does. Those are the types of things. I work with a lot of the reviewers as they're going through the process of reviewing the programs. And I do want to point out too, and we've mentioned this I think before, it's a masked review process. So when the reviewers are reviewing proposals, they don't see who it is submitted by or what institution. So I want to mention that. But I do work with a lot of reviewers and I see a lot of their comments, and so I have noticed that they will pick out things like typos, and it seems like it was prepared in a rush, that sort of thing. So that's something to watch out for. Learning objectives are super important. I believe it's a required field actually on the submittal form. It's one of the areas that I think in the past people have tended to want to skip, and I would definitely not recommend that. I definitely see that again as something that reviewers will point out as being missing or perhaps not well enough developed. The outline is very important for lots of reasons. You should try to be as detailed on the outline as possible, and we'll look at an example of this in a few minutes, but even trying to be as detailed as saying how many minutes you're going to spend on each portion of the presentation is really helpful in the reviewers who are trying to visualize. They read your proposal and they say, okay, this is what it is. Now, how are you going to do it? And the outline is really the place where you describe how that's going to get done. How am I going to take this concept and take these learning objectives and really put it into practice? It's something that would be engaging. And so the outline is very helpful for that. And here again, this is another place where I see a lot of comments from reviewers saying, hey, this was missing, or I couldn't tell from the outline how couldn't visualize how it was really going to happen. Another important thing about the outline is a lot of times reviewers will see a lot of very similar programs, and they'll think to themselves, boy, this program really sounds exactly like the other one. Sometimes they use the outlines to compare them and say, well, it sounded similar, but the way they're talking about doing the outline, they're actually very different. So it's very important. I can't stress that enough. So scoring criteria, I wanted to display that here. I'm not going to read through every one of these, but you can skim through it quickly. Again, you'll have a chance to go back and look at these slides later in more detail, but just wanted to give everyone an idea of how exactly your proposal will be scored. We also have these displayed on our website, which I'm also going to have us take a look at later too. I can show you where to actually, we have this information displayed in other places as well that you can actually go back and look at as well. This is just an example of a program from a couple of years ago. I think this might have been from 2016 or 2017. I'm not exactly sure, but we chose this program based on how well it scored from the reviewers and the types of comments that we got from the reviewers, and we'll get a chance to look at those comments once we sort of step through the program a little bit. But you can, just looking at it, again, I'm not going to read it, but you can just get a feel for the way that the title and the description is worded, and just get some ideas from that. Again, these are examples of the learning objectives from the same program. They're very well developed and thought out. This is the outline. Obviously, again, not going to have time to read all of this, but as you can see, it barely fits on the screen, so they were very detailed in their outline. They do have it broken down into, this portion is going to take 10 minutes. And this is a good time for me to mention too, when you're planning your program, when you're planning your presentation, you're deciding how long you're going to spend on each concept, it's a good idea to remember that if you haven't presented before, if this is your first time presenting, or if it isn't, so if you have a 50-minute intro session, let's just take that for example. you're going to want to allow at least 5 minutes of time for moderators to, so say your presentation starts at 2 o'clock. It's going to take at least till 2:05 for people to get settled in their chairs, for moderators to make their announcements, make sure everyone has an evaluation form, a pencil. So I would definitely build that into your presentation and tell yourself, if I'm submitting for 15 minutes, I really probably only have about 40 to 45 minutes of actual content presentation time that I can do. So I would plan for that. I think that's another area where I think we've gotten some feedback in the past where people were saying, gosh, I feel like we didn't really hear all that we needed to, or we didn't really get into this as much in depth as we really wanted to. And I think that that's one of the reasons why, is that it's easy to forget to allow time for moderators. So that's important. These are just some examples of the actual comments that reviewers had made about this particular program. One of the things that I think is important, it says, the proposal is a much needed topic. So you'll see later, and then when you get a chance to go in and look at our website, you'll see that, when we say tips and tricks for submitting proposals, that an emerging topic is something that we're really looking for. So, based on this feedback, I would say this probably really hit a nerve with that. It even says in the third bullet, actually showcases an emerging technology. So that obviously caught attention. It's a unique topic. So that's other wording that catches attention. It's organized and thorough. The concept is interesting. And then finally, innovative and captivating. So, really kind of hit all the different areas of what we look for when we evaluate programs. I guess I sort of talked about this already. One thing on the third bullet, so this is just basically rationale that, said why the program was chosen and did as well as it did. So I talked about a lot of it on the last slide, but on the third bullet, I mentioned not campus specific. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit, because that is something we also get feedback on, is that, gee, this was a really great concept, but it's something that really only works on a particular campus. So if you have a concept like that, you want to make sure that the topic isn't something that's specific and works only on your campus. You want it to be something that's sort of universally applied, or could be of interest to anyone at any campus, and not even just US centric, but internationally as well. Again, mentions the outline is very detailed. People like that, meets all the defined criteria. So I want to give just, it's not really a demo, I guess. I'm just going to sort of switch screens and actually go to our website and show you, where do I find the link? How do I submit? Where do I find my draft? And just sort of the mechanics of actually submitting a proposal. So I'm going to switch screens here. And Christine, let me know if you can see actually the website. Is that displaying okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure everyone's seeing it. I'm not talking on and no one is seeing what I'm displaying here. So this is our actual ACUHO website, which hopefully you're familiar with. Actually, I want to go all the way. I'm going to take a step back and actually go to the home page. So this is the starting page when you go to ACUHO.org. And this is, I'm going to kind of guide you through, how to find the link and how to submit the proposal, and how to find also, I mentioned that there was some a place where you could find, sort of review all the detailed information that I just sort of went over very quickly in the last few minutes. So we also send out a number of communications. Hopefully you're familiar with getting our Connections newsletter, and we also send out social media that has linked, actually, that will take you right to the page that you want to go to. But if you're just going to the ACUHO website and you want to find it, this is the best way to do it. So you go to educational events, you go to conference and expo. If you scroll down a little bit to the left here, you'll see it's the very last tab down here, and you click on that. And this will take you, this is actually a new page this year, so we're really excited about this. We haven't had this before, but this page provides a number of resources for submitting a proposal. Not only just the link, which you see right here in a nice big blue button there. So if you click on that, that will take you right to the actual form that you will fill out. We also, there's a sample submission form here. So if you click on this button, it will download a PDF. And I had already done that. It opens up actually in a new tab, but you can also download it. What this document is actually sort of it's a PDF version of the actual so submissions are done all online. So this is a PDF representation of what that form looks like. So I would highly recommend downloading this PDF and really looking at it. I mean, if it were me, I'm kind of old school. I'd print it out and write all over it. And this is a good way to really read through this and see this is the information I have to gather before I submit online. I think one of the last things you probably want to do is sit online and compose your whole program and then have the internet go out or the website crash or something like that and lose all of your work. It does happen, unfortunately, to people, at least one person every year, and it just, I feel so bad when it happens. But this is a great way to prevent that, is to read through this document, think about all the things you need ahead of time. I would recommend putting it all together in a Word document and saving it somewhere, and then when you're ready to submit, then at that point I would go and click this blue button and I would just cut and paste everything into there and hit submit. I think that's probably the best method. But definitely give this sample form a look. One thing, I'm not going to go over, obviously every detail of it, but one thing I want to point out, and this is a stickler point, or a point where I think sometimes people get hung up, is when they're actually, putting in the names of their presenters. So what's important to know here is that you're going to want to type in the name in the search bar. Instead of just going and typing in names, you're going to want to use the search bar and try to find the name, because that brings up actual, the person's actual individual record and all of their information, and pulls that through. And it really makes the best experience later on, especially if your program does get accepted. It's actually pulling in through the live individual record information for all of your presenters. So, and it's detailed. When you get a chance to read this, it'll tell you exactly how to do that. So I just wanted to point that out. Also located here is, there's a sort of a little resources box in this little gray area here. It's got some deadlines on it. It talks, Christine mentioned this before, that proposals are due on December 4th. We will be notifying presenters in early February. There's a link here to the Presenter Service Center. If you're not familiar with the Presenter Service Center, what this is the minute you submit your program, you'll get a confirmation email with a link to this Presenter Service Center. You'll be able to click right on it, and when you click on it, and actually I'm going to go ahead and do it now, and hopefully it will come up. It'll take you to this Presenter Service Center. This is an area where I can view, now some of this are just test programs that I've put in here, but it'll allow you to view your program. So here's my program that I submitted for 2019 Conference and Exposition. I can view my program, and it will tell me my results are going to be available on this date. And so you can keep checking back here, and on a particular date, and we think it'll be, maybe on or around the 15th, we'll be updating the statuses of the programs, and you'll be able to go in, and the page should turn over and update, and you'll be able to see your status. You'll go right into your program. You'll be able to, if you get accepted, you'll be able to accept the speaking offer and do a number of things that you need to do, all through this Presenter Service Center. So the Presenter Service Center is kind of a big deal. So I would definitely recommend checking that out. I'm going to go back to the landing page here. Drafts. I want to mention this because this is kind of a big deal every year. You can start working on your proposal, and you can save a draft and then go back to it later and complete it. One area where I think people get hung up on is finding that draft after they submit it. If you can't find the draft, the best place to come is this web page right here, and click on this link, and it will take you to a page where your draft is located. So I would definitely pay attention to this gray box that has all kinds of good information in it. There's your sample form. Farther on down the page is more information. Some of the things Christine already touched on: the audience. We talked about the session type. She also talked about core competency areas. There's a listing here. This gives tips and tricks. Some of them I've touched on already, so you can just click on the little blue arrows and it'll drop down and give you more information. This is where we talked about emerging issues. What kind of topics should I be looking at? So those are all listed on this page. This is a really, really valuable area, so I would definitely recommend taking a look at this. All right, I'm going to switch back to the PowerPoint. Hopefully I didn't go on too long there. I just want to talk a little bit about the actual session types themselves. We talked about 50-minute intro sessions, but we also have a set of programs It's actually a whole education session that's all quick takes. So these are 30-minute sessions. Again, keep in mind, you really probably only have about 25 minutes when you give that moderator time to do their job. There's a quick, fast-paced session. It is, oh, and I already said we have my third bullet there to allow time. So it's a quick, fast-paced session. Obviously, it's something meant to, give quick information. People are in and out of there in 30 minutes. Roundtables are facilitated discussions. Roundtables are very popular. It's amazing how popular they actually are. And so we love to get proposals on roundtables. And I think that it kind of shows that I think that our membership really likes to, we like to sit through presentations and get information, but we also really like to talk to each other. So these are very popular sessions. I encourage you to consider submitting. So basically it's a room and it has 25 chairs in a circle. There's no technology, no PowerPoint, no AV, no sound, no nothing. It is a conversation. It has a flip chart and markers, and it does say the attendance is limited to 25 participants, and most of the time we end up with many more people in these roundtables than that. And then we have some suggestions for different topics like wellness and just specific populations of students, best practices. Those are great ideas for roundtables. Tips and tricks, again, these are listed too in that resource area on the website that I showed you. But just quickly, key topic areas, being unique, well-developed outline, multiple perspectives, people really like that, providing data, and then timely issues and best practices. Pre-conferences, Christine talked about this a little bit, but I'll review it as well. These are on Saturday morning. There's usually, there's actually Saturday morning and afternoon. So there's a session that starts in the morning. It goes from 9 a.m. to noon, and then it starts again in the afternoon from 1 to 4. And listed here are the topics that we are looking for pre-conferences: civility between students, emotional intelligence, and resiliency. And these are all, when you're submitting your proposal, you're able to select one of these as a topic when you're submitting a pre-conference. So the 3 hours, yes, 3 hours is a long time. Being interactive is great. Including some breaks is also a good idea. Handouts, so anything you can do. Obviously, we don't want our audience sitting there for 3 hours just being talked at, nor do you want to present for 3 hours straight either. So some possible formats: train the trainers are great, any kind of workshop type setup, and group activities. So that was a lot of stuff. Hopefully I didn't go too fast or miss anything, but we do want to encourage everyone to, think about joining us in Toronto, June 22nd through the 25th in Toronto. It's a really exciting city. If you've not been, I think you really enjoy it. And so we look forward to seeing your proposals. Christine, and I think that takes us to our question and conversation time. So if you do have questions, as Christine mentioned, just go ahead, and there is, if you look at your control panel, there's a little box there. It either says chat or questions, and you can just go ahead and pull that up and type in any questions that you might have. And we'll give folks a few minutes to do that. And while we're thinking of questions, hopefully I mentioned this, I think I did, we're recording this webinar. So we'll be posting that up on YouTube, and we'll be providing the YouTube link out to folks who may have missed. And again, I'm sure there may be some information on some of the slides that you'll want to go back and look at and review a little bit later. And definitely remember to check out our website and check out the page, the Call for Programs page that I showed you. I think there's a lot of information on there. And you can also contact either Christine or I. Christine, did we put our email addresses on our names?
I don't think they are, but we can definitely put them in before we send it out.
Yes, I can do that. I can put that on the title slide there too. So if you have any other questions, definitely reach out to us on email. Feel free to ask us anything that's on your mind. Remember,
just a couple of things. One is you are welcome to submit as many programs as you would like. What I will tell you is once we have chosen through the blind process that Lori talked about, we then do look at presenter names to ensure that we don't have a presenter that's presenting 5 times, for instance. And so we do pay attention to that. But, you know, if you have more than one topic that you feel passionate about and feel that you would like to share about, please feel free to submit more than one. And also, Lori, I don't know if you mentioned the co-presenter stuff, but one of the things that we really, I think you did, but the committee really looks strongly at when you have co-presenters and you have more than one presenter, especially from different institutions or different types of institutions, because it does make it more applicable to more of our members. And so that can be helpful. And then finally, feel free to share, when we send this out, feel free to share this webinar with others that you think would be good presenters, and encourage those to do that as well. Yes, they are your competition, but like I said at the beginning, we're trying to put together the best conference program that we can.
Thanks, Christine. I did have one question, and actually I think you kind of may have already answered it when you were talking about co-presenters, but someone had asked if there's a way to be matched up with others that may be interested in presenting on a topic. Absolutely. I think probably one of the best ways to do that, and Christine, you can chime in if you have other ideas, but I think one of the best ways to do that is to use the ACUHO online community. If you're not familiar with that, in fact, I'll just switch over to the website again really quickly. If you're not familiar with the online community, if you look over on the top bar of the website, this green button here, online community, this is a great place, and you need to be logged in, obviously, to post, but this is a great place actually to post ideas like that. So I definitely recommend using the online community for that. And that was actually all of the questions that I had. So it looks like we covered maybe most of what we need to, but I'm sure folks once they start developing their presentations and get online and start looking through some things, again, we welcome emailing to us any questions that you have. I think that's it, Christine.
I think so too. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today, and hopefully you felt this was helpful. And like I said, feel free to share it with others as well.
Perfect. Very good. Thanks, everyone. And thanks for taking the time and engaging with us today. And I'll look forward to seeing your proposals. Have a great afternoon.
Bye, everyone.